Hello. So I am continuing to work to take some of my old blog posts, some of the longer written material, and turn them into YouTube videos, make them more accessible, easier to connect to for folks. And one of them that I wrote last year was about this survey of the Hebrew Roots movement from someone within the movement. His name is Ben Frostad. He did a survey, and we'll look at the details of that, called Jews, Gentiles, and Torah, Exploring the Contours of the Messianic Torah Spectrum. He posted it to academia.edu. You can go there and find it. And so this is a survey of people within the movement by someone within the movement. I thought it was very helpful and insightful. I have just 11 observations. It's going to be a fairly short video. So I will in a moment just be diving into those. I wanted to let you know that I'm working on turning this, and I can't see exactly where the camera is focusing, The Lost World of the Torah by Dr. John Walton, the professor at Wheaton. I'm working on turning this into a seminar, into a perhaps 5 or 6 hour discussion of Torah in its original ancient Israelite context. What did it mean in that context to that original audience? How was it first received? What did it first do? What was it like then? Because there are some fascinating observations in Walton's book. It's an awesome book, and I'm going to build upon that and add a bunch of my own teaching material to round that out, but that's going to take me a few months. So until that one's ready, I'm mining my old work to continue to offer things. So this is the paper that this is derived from. This analysis that I'm doing, Ben Frostad's master's thesis for the Torah Resource Institute. That's Tim Hegg's organization. Tim Hegg was part of the leadership of First Fruits of Zion until 2009. They had a messy divorce at that point. Torah Resource Institute is a one law organization. They are upfront about that. They believe that there is one law for Jew and Gentile and have no qualms with saying so. So Ben Frostad was part of that organization. He got his education with the Torah Resource Institute, wrote this paper, and it was overseen by Tim Hegg. So this is, again, right within the movement. In other words, this paper here, and it's 300 pages, 230 some pages, printed the whole thing, sorry to my photocopier, and read the whole thing and analyzed it. This is what these 11 points, I'm boiling it down for you as quite a bit. But this paper, this survey, were created by, overseen by true believers in the Hebrew Roots movement on behalf of an organization that is promoting those beliefs. So this is not the suppositions, the theories of critics of the movement. Again, I freely admit I'm a critic of the movement. I have been defending orthodoxy against one particular aspect of this movement for the last couple of years. These are the views of those from within the movement as portrayed by someone within the movement. And I'm simply analyzing them and saying, okay, here's your data and what do I think of it? So let's dive right in. There's 11 points. It's not going to take very long. His thesis. But before I dive into his analysis, what was the thesis of his paper? His thesis, Ben's, is, and this is what he argues after he gets done talking about the data, is that the Jewish Messianic movement ought to stop opposing and instead embrace Gentile Torah observance. Which, again, as Ben has said, and I would agree with that, they have indicated no widespread desire to do that, to simply say, hey, Gentiles, come on in and start living like Jews just like us. That's what he wants the Jewish Messianic movement to do. And I'm not going to speak for the Jewish Messianic movement and for the people within it and what they should or shouldn't do. But that's what Ben Frostad wants them to do. And that's the part of the purpose of his writing that paper. So let's look at the data, right? Because there's some fascinating things here. So what was it? This survey was conducted during 2016 and 2017. So it's not the most up to date, but it was the newest information that I have been able to find thus far. 699 qualifying respondents from 31 countries, the majority of which were Americans, second Canadians, and then just a couple of from other nations. Because of course that's more than 634, excuse me, well over 600 from the United States and Canada. So each of the people who answered this survey affirmed these two things. He wouldn't include their answers if they didn't say yes to both of these. So that's helpful for us. Number one, do you believe in Yeshua, in Jesus? So if you don't believe in Jesus, you're not included. Secondly, do you observe any of the following: Seventh-day Sabbath, the biblical festivals of Leviticus 23, and or biblical diet restrictions? So someone who believes in Jesus, who keeps the Sabbath or the festivals or kosher on some level. Again, this is self-affirmed, right? So we obviously don't know the lives of all 699 people, but the people who answered his survey said yes, yes, and so here is what they had to say. What can we learn from it? 11 very important things. Number one, only a small minority of those participating in the Hebrew Roots movement are Jewish. Again, I've said this before. I've had it thrown in my face and had people deny that, but 102 people, 15% answered yes to Ben's two questions. He asked it two different ways, claiming Jewish identity. Although this number is somewhat inflated because it's higher than those who would be considered Jewish with respect to their ethnicity in the ethnic sense. Because half of the people who said, yes, I'm Jewish, were doing so on the basis of some Jewish ancestry. Again, I don't know them. I don't know what some Jewish ancestry means to them, but they didn't have Jewish parents. So they were at least one generation removed in that sense. And a number of the people of that 15% claimed to be spiritual Jews. Again, that's not ethnic. That's not tracing back to Abraham. That is simply saying, I feel like I am connected to the Jewish people. I'm going to call myself Jewish. So even at 15%, which is a minority, the numbers are well inflated. The actual number of these 699 people that were surveyed who are Jewish is very small. Again, what we expect to see and what has been our experience here in Venango County in my place of ministry, it's virtually 0% are Jewish. The people participating in Torah clubs through the First Fruits of Zion are all Gentiles, virtually. To my knowledge, I haven't known any that are actually Jewish. In his paper, in Ben's paper, Ben many times emphasizes that this movement is overwhelmingly composed of Gentiles. So someone within the movement saying, no, this is a Gentile movement, all right, not a Jewish movement. So there's the first point. Second point, the roots of the movement are very modern. Now, again, this movement is claiming to be doing something ancient, but it's a modern movement. 68% had joined the movement since 2000. Less than 10% of them were a part of it before 1990. So the internet has been a boon to this particular ideology. The internet's been a boon to a lot of ideologies, things that have exploded in popularity since the internet. And of course, much of this growth has been in the last 10 years. As a side note, this is just one of the things. There were a lot of interesting nuggets in the survey material. A number of respondents reported struggling with flat earth conspiracies within their local groups. Why their local Hebrew Roots movement groups are talking about flat earth conspiracies, I have no idea, but a number of them self-reported that they are. A strong indicator that the internet is a driving force in spreading this ideology, because you don't get flat earth conspiracies without being on the internet. That's not something that people come to on their own by looking at the world and figuring it out for themselves. They found that online. So it's a very online driven, very modern idea. 3, the organization, First Fruits of Zion, which I've written about almost exclusively, that's been my focus, is a major player in this movement. Respondents were asked to list their influences. That is, who or what helped lead them into the movement when you began in it, and who is your influence currently? Who do you read? Who do you follow? Whose podcasts are you listening to? First Fruits of Zion was the top source listed at 13%, very wide within, again, I've stressed this before, it's a wide-ranging movement with a lot of different beliefs, some, and so it's hard to talk about the entire Hebrew Roots movement believes this or does that because there's a lot of variety in there. But 13% said First Fruits of Zion is why I got into it. 9% said they're who I follow currently. So they're not a fringe group. They're the largest driving force within this movement. Again, some of the fiercest critics online of First Fruits of Zion are people within the Hebrew Roots movement who can't stand them. But by and large, they're the number one source. When asked for a specific title, what book was the biggest influence on you? First Fruits of Zion's Ha Yasad was the number one book listed. That's this book right here. Numerous quotations from this. I've read it cover to cover and drawn from it many quotes were used. This is their basic discipleship manual. A number of those quotes were used in the Franklin Christian Ministerium's primary source analysis of First Fruits of Zion. And that's the title of it, an examination of the unorthodox beliefs of the First Fruits of Zion, their Torah clubs, and the Hebrew Roots movement in general. I'll put the link to it below. There's an updated version, my most up-to-date version. So I have, again, this is their number one book. It is part of my analysis. So I'm right on the money in respect to looking at what the people within the movement are saying is their top organization and their top title. 4, the church is the mission field for this movement, not non-believers. Again, I have been criticized, but here's the data. This is no surprise. First Fruits of Zion specifically targets people who belong to local churches. This is Boaz Michael, the founder and president of First Fruits of Zion. This is a direct quote. Most churchgoers still have no idea that they're called to be disciples of a Jewish rabbi. The potential to come alongside these brothers and sisters and seriously reorient their understanding of Jesus' life and teaching is nearly limitless. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. It's fingers on the chalkboard to hear Boaz Michael speak about going into the church and quoting Jesus, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, which of course is about taking the gospel to the lost, to the people who need to hear about Jesus. But you're using that to go after people that already believe in Jesus, people that already value the Bible, and people who are already trying to be disciples, and you're reorienting them and pulling them away. Let's look at the data. 65% of those participating in the Hebrew Roots movement were formerly a part of an evangelical church. 2/3 of those in this movement started in an evangelical church. 93% indicated some type of Christian background. Again, this is a movement comprised almost entirely of Gentiles who used to be a part of the church. 2% participated in non-Christian religion, and 2% were non-religious. Statistically insignificant numbers. This movement is purposefully targeting the church, drawing the majority of its adherents, 2/3 of them, from evangelical churches. That's a serious insight. Number 5. Following a rabbinic calendar and refraining from saying the name of God is the plurality position among followers. So that's not a majority, but it's the largest segment of those surveyed. 32% said that it was necessary to follow the Jewish calendar and wrong to speak the name of God. They're part of that sacred name movement one way or another. So we've seen this locally. With those in the leadership of the local Torah clubs participating in Jewish festivals and writing about them on social media and having no qualms about sharing that they're now keeping Passover, that they're now doing Feast of Booths, et cetera, that they are participating in these things. And our local Torah club leaders now, one of them at least, is unwilling to write out the name of God and replaces it with G-D, L-RD. Won't say God, won't write it. Along with, of course, adopting Yeshua and using that to replace the anglicized Jesus. So we found this to be true. That's the largest group within this movement are people that follow the Jewish calendar now and won't say the name of God. A further 29% of the survey respondents agreed with the need to follow the Jewish calendar, but didn't have an issue with saying the name of God. So 29 and 32, you've got 61% are now following the Jewish calendar, keeping the festivals. 6, they don't believe that followers of this movement should stay connected to the church. They don't believe it. 67% strongly disagreed. A further 18% somewhat disagreed that Gentile believers should remain in established Christian churches instead of joining Messianic Torah congregations. So this has been one of the concerns that caused the Franklin Christian Ministerium to take the action that we took in issuing a public rebuke of this organization 2.5 years ago. When 85% of the people involved in a movement believe that it's wrong to remain in the church, and that movement is purposefully targeting people who currently attend churches, the result will be the breaking of fellowship from those churches. And I have seen this again and again. I've had people from all over the country reach out to me by email and call me and talk to me about how a Torah club or a Hebrew Roots organization had got within their church. People got connected to it. They were attending it. They were a part of it. They were excited about it. And then the church started to break. People left fellowship. People didn't care what their pastor had to say anymore, didn't care about the authority of the deacons, of the elders of their church. They were instead listening to Hebrew Roots leaders, and they left. They ultimately broke ties and left. I've seen this many times. It's sad. But again, 85% of the people within the movement, that's what they think they should do, is leave. So let's pause for a moment and think about this. It doesn't matter to me as a pastor in my role, in my ordained, called role as a pastor, what an organization believes, keep with me on this, or what it hopes to accomplish if it is purposefully and actively pulling people away from active participation in a local church. If it is doing that, it's an unbiblical organization. It's a dangerous organization, and it needs to be treated as a threat to the church, both locally and universally. Even if the organization has orthodox beliefs, if what you are doing is pulling people from fellowship within the church, you are a danger. This movement, of course, lacks orthodox beliefs, so that adds to it. But even if they were orthodox, and the only thing they were doing was pulling people, proselytizing people from churches and pulling them to their own, they were basically just being sheep stealers. This would be a very dangerous organization and something we would say, wait, what are you doing? That's a contradiction of the Word of God, right? Jesus himself established the church to continue his kingdom work. By all means, reform the church when it needs it. We need it. We've needed it in every generation. We've needed it throughout our history. We've needed reformers. But abandon it? Walk away from it? Never. It's the body of Christ. It's the bride of Christ. What are we doing? Number 7, they don't believe Torah was given by God just for Jews. And again, how these questions are worded might affect the numbers a little bit. These are the terms that Ben chose when he wrote it. You can read his paper. You can look at, there's a lot more data than this. These were the ones that jumped out at me as being significant. 61% strongly disagreed, and a further 11% somewhat disagreed with the idea that the Torah is just for Jews, resulting in a solid majority that believe that as followers of Jesus, the law of Moses is obligatory in some way for them as Gentiles. This is the heart of one law theology, which of course the Torah Resource Institute that he went to promotes that. And First Fruits of Zion supposedly abandoned one law theology in favor of divine permission, divine invitation. They call it a couple of different things back in 2009. But they continue to teach it through their published materials. Again, I have documented this till I'm blue in the face over and over again. Quotes, if you do not follow Torah, if you do not obey the law of Moses, you don't really love Jesus. They say something like that over and over and over and over again. So there's still one law in practice. But again, 72% of people within the movement are like, yeah, Torah's for us too. And again, how you word the question, I saying it's just for Jews is probably not the best way of wording it, because I believe it's not written for or to me, but it was written for me. It was written for everyone in the world, but it was written to the Jews. Again, so I don't know how, if he had worded this differently, it would affect this, but I'm not surprised by the results. Number 8, they believe that modern Christian practice is pagan in origin. Why the hostility toward the church, right? That's been one of the questions. Why is there so much hostility? Well, why the desire to withdraw people from fellowship in Christian congregations? Why, once you get in this movement, are you likely to leave the church? 82%, 42% strongly, 40% somewhat, believe that the practices of the modern church are pagan. And we've witnessed, and I've seen online, a lot of hostility towards Christmas and Easter, among other things. But that's the smear. That's the propaganda that people are hearing in Hebrew roots movement organizations, that the church is pagan. It's all a bunch of pagan stuff. They stole pagan stuff. They borrowed pagan stuff. And therefore, you need to let go of everything that the church is doing, especially Christmas and Easter. That's the direction this is heading. 82% of people in this movement have that understanding that the church's practices and beliefs are pagan. 9. Doubt about the deity of Jesus Christ is a minority opinion, but not an insubstantial one. 25%, so 1 in 4, were unwilling to say that they strongly agreed that Yeshua is God. That's the kind of, again, strongly agree can be a hard thing to say in a survey. I understand that. But Yeshua is God is as apostolic and orthodox a belief as any in the history of the followers of Jesus Christ. So 25% said, yeah, we can't go there. So of that quarter, 10% actively disagreed with the statement. As noted in our research, and my research has seen this again and again, there's a strand of both subordinationism and modalism within this movement. So I'm encouraged that these numbers were not higher, as they no doubt would be if you surveyed Jehovah's Witnesses. They would say higher than 25% would say they don't agree that Jesus is God. The fact that a significant minority have abandoned apostolic teachings of the New Testament about the deity of Christ is a huge warning sign. And I did this this post. Oh, excuse me. I bumped my keyboard. Before I had read Daniel Lancaster's Only Begotten Son, and I made 4 videos about that, where he is definitely weakening the idea of the deity of Christ, the personhood of the Word, etc., etc. So my concern about the lack of affirmation of the deity of Christ has only grown in the last year as I continue to read more and see more within their materials, their books, their podcasts, etc., coming out of First Fruits of Zion in particular. 10. A majority believe they're no longer a part of Christianity. 53%, 33% strongly, 20% somewhat, disagreed that their faith was a part of modern Christianity. Here, locally, the Torah clubs are proselytizing under the idea that this is just a Bible study. I've heard this is just a Bible study, just a Bible study, just a Bible study. I've heard that over and over and over and over again. Well, this is the United States of America. I'm a Baptist. You are more than free to leave the church and Christianity if that's what you choose to do. I believe in freedom of religion. But people joining what is advertised as a Bible study ought to be aware that the majority of those involved in this movement have self-consciously left Christianity now that they belong to the Hebrew roots movement. More than half of the people surveyed that belong to this movement said, I'm not part of Christianity anymore. So when you get invited to a Bible study, when they set materials out at the table at the church, inviting people, and I've seen that, very dangerous, because it's just a Bible study. We're going to learn about Moses and the Torah. Oh, great, a Bible study. People show up, they have no idea that they're being led into a movement where more than half of the people don't even think that they're Christians anymore. And 11, those who have left the church entirely are the most optimistic about the Hebrew roots movement. These are Frostad's quotes here. Those who agree that Gentiles should stay in established Christian churches rather than joining the Messianic movement tend to have a very low optimism about the movement. In other words, those still connected to a local church aren't entirely sold on where this thing is going. They're not really gung-ho on the Hebrew roots movement. They're still connected to their local church. Whereas those who strongly agree that Christianity is pagan tend to be more optimistic for the movement. So if you're ready to cut ties with the church and walk away from Christianity, the Hebrew roots movement, according to this self-reported survey, feels like the winning ticket. So that's what they believe. The Frostad saw that people still connected to their local church did not think as highly of the Hebrew roots movement as those who had severed ties, those who had walked away, those who believe that the church is pagan now. That tells you what you need to know. So again, you can read his paper. Please do get more information there and see for yourself. Because there are other interesting things in there. I'm just trying to keep it small enough, make it a bite-sized chunk, rather than respond to every single question he asked them, because there were a lot. So overall, this survey further confirms many of the concerns that the Franklin Christian Ministerium, of which I'm a member, has expressed about the Hebrew roots movement, First Fruits of Zion, and the Torah clubs. You don't need to take our word for it. This is what they believe about themselves. And so I am interested. I've had a lot of useful conversations online on my YouTube channel, in particular with folks who say they're part of the Hebrew roots movement. And some of them think First Fruits of Zion's not part of their movement. I've had that conversation. Some of them believe that First Fruits of Zion is part of Messianic Judaism. I've seen that conversation. So if this does not jive with your experience in the Hebrew roots movement, I would be happy for your comments, and I will respect your experience. I'm telling you what the data shows. We were highlighting what a majority opinions are and how strongly they're held. And so this helps us understand people outside the movement, people who are in the church, helps us understand what's this all about. And so if that helps further that conversation in truth, right, and an honest conversation about it, I will appreciate that effort. And thank you.